Hello everybody, I am the Black Sigma, or you could just call me Eric. And finding out the SL9 incident referred to the Joe Dark killings? Now that she mentions it, the names of both Sky Sisters were in that file. But that's when I figured it out. What Officer Marshall was trying to do that day? So I knew his fingerprint had nothing to do with the crime. That left only one thing, the other handprint. You mean the traces of blood found on Detective Gumshoe's locker? But no fingerprints were found on it, right? No, but I figured if I examined it scientifically, I'd be sure to find a clue. So I ran over there and looked at it again. So did you find something? No. Huh? Sorry, I guess I'm not much of a scientific investigator after all. Is that all? Please don't be mad, I'm just a high school student. I'm just an attorney. But Mr. Wright, those traces of blood are the only clue we have. If we can't find something wrong with them... Please, Mr. Wright, you're a professional. If anyone can save Lana, it's you. Me? Oh boy. Time's up. Now then, Mr. Wright, with regard to the incident at the police department, does any reasonable doubt remain? It appears the defense is troubled by the other blood mark. Looking at the floor plans, a handprint was discovered around here. Is there a problem with this? Mr. Wright, I'm sorry I can't be of more use, but still... If you can't find anything wrong with that blood mark, Lana will be... Please answer my question, Mr. Wright. We don't have all day. Yes, Your Honor. If I've ever needed concrete evidence, it's now. What could be wrong with that handprint on Detective Gumshoe's locker? Could there be something I'm missing? Absolutely. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The blue badger was in front of that locker. Clearly a contradiction. The only thing that seems clear is you're grasping, right? You've been staring pretty intently at those floor plans. Tell me, is there a problem with them? Take a good look at these floor plans. Something is missing. Missing? You mean something hasn't been drawn on there? Yes, something that, when drawn, will completely change the meaning of the blood mark. Let us pray the defense isn't simply trying to buy time. Very well, Mr. Wright. With all this evidence here, there's gotta be something I can use. Which item can prove something is missing in the floor plans? Well, the video would prove it's missing, but more importantly, take that! What about that piece of plywood? The Blue Badger, mascot of the police force. Defender of truth, guardian of proof. Explain yourself, Mr. Wright. Please look at the floor plans of the crime scene. The Blue Badger is not here. So? So watch what happens when we put him in. This is where he was dancing at the time of the crime. Well, what? Ugh, that's right. So as long as the Blue Badger is dancing here, it would be impossible to place a handprint at this spot on the locker. What? What? Partner? So that means, just what exactly does that mean? Means it can't be done. What are you saying? Blood traces were undeniably found on that locker. Don't look at me, I didn't put it there. Mr. Wright, think it through scientifically. Emma, on that afternoon, Officer Meekins was the one who brought the Blue Badger to the evidence room, right? After he put it down, it would be impossible to leave a handprint on that locker. So that must mean this blood mark was left there before the Blue Badger was brought in. Just one moment, I will not allow such far-fetched balderdash in my court. May sound far-fetched, Your Honor, but it's the only possible explanation. On February 21st, in the police department's evidence room, blood was spilled not once, but twice. But how? One time was captured on this tape taken by the security camera. Officer Meekins cut his hand, from which a trivial amount of blood fell. The problem is the other time. Someone bled prior to the struggle shown on this tape. It had to have been Detective Goodman, when he was really murdered. That's ridiculous. I refuse to accept your absurd claim. The murder portrayed in the security tape has been proven to be a fake. However, that does not explain the blood mark found on the locker. So then, assuming this murder you purport really happened, when did it take place? I demand you show evidence that prove when it occurred. When did the first incident occur? To summarize, the defense claims that prior to Officer Meekins being cut by Jake Marshall, who was posing as Detective Goodman, another incident took place in that evidence room. That's right, the blood mark on the locker proves this. Very well, then tell us. When did this first incident occur? As Mr. Edgeworth said, proof must be presented. There's only one piece of evidence for that. Someone else entered the room prior. It had to be either Miles Edgeworth, the earlier incident with Meekins, or the unknown recording. Regardless, someone on this list happened to do it. And in order to do so, ID card would be required. Officer Meekins brought the Blue Badger panel into the evidence room at 4:50. If the crime took place before that time, then it'd be 4:40 PM. Miles Edgeworth? Just what have you done? I never would have figured you had the nerve, boy. Drop the act, witness. It doesn't take a lot of thought to figure out it couldn't have been me. Nope, I ain't getting it. I'm afraid I don't understand either. It's clear from the luminol test that blood was there. However, when the second crime took place, both Officer Meekins and Officer Marshall failed to notice the blood. That means the blood from the first crime was wiped away by the real murderer. It would have had just 10 minutes to... I would have had just 10 minutes to murder the victim, carry his body away, and clean up the blood. Unfortunately, that's physically impossible. That would mean the crime must have taken place before Mr. Edgeworth entered the evidence room. Let's take a look at that chart again. There's only one other card number remaining, and it's all 7s. Talk about a lucky number. But wait, that doesn't make sense. How could Detective Goodman have entered the evidence room? Since there's no record of his card being used beforehand, he must have entered along with the real murderer. That's the only plausible explanation. He went in with 777-7777. Mr. Edgeworth, please look into this ASAP. Find out whose ID number this 77... For God's sakes. That's 17 too many, Your Honor. Unfortunately, I'm unable to look up the owner of that ID card. At least at present. What? Why am I looking at my lawyer's badge? Explain yourself, son. The ID number 77777777 belongs to someone with a rank of captain or higher. Someone who is a so-called executive officer. We don't have the authority to inquire into such a person's identity. But that's ridiculous. Just how... I'm not finished talking, Mr. Wright. There is one situation in which we can be granted such authority. If an official charge filed against an executive is accepted. An official charge? You're all alike, aren't you? With your cover-ups and your forgeries. That's how the prosecutor's office operates. I take pride in my work, Officer Marshall. I would appreciate it if you keep your slander to yourself. Slander, is it? Okay. Let me ask a question. Yes. Not to you. To her, the defendant sitting over there. Your own little executive. Lana? Don't be stupid. She's been charged with murder. Of course we've looked up her ID number, and it's not 77777777. Don't play me for a fool, partner. That's not what I wanted to ask. All I want to know is one thing about that incident. The SL9 incident. Answer me this, Chief Prosecutor. In that trial 2 years ago, did you really only use legitimate evidence? Do you need the witness to repeat his question, Chief Prosecutor? I heard him fine, Mr. Edgeworth. 2 years ago, I was in charge of the prosecution for that trial. At the time, occasionally, we felt the powerlessness of the law. At least I did. Huh? Lana? I became a prosecutor in order to suppress crime with the law. But before I realized it, we were the ones being suppressed by the law. Defendant, just what are you saying? I'll ask you again, Chief Prosecutor. During that trial 2 years ago, did you really present all the evidence in court? Can you look me, an investigator in that crime, in the eye and say that you did? Chief Prosecutor, you didn't. I don't have to, Officer Marshall. Why won't you answer him? Drastic crimes require drastic measures. That's just the way it is. We did what we had to, in order for him to get the verdict he deserved. But Lana, even if it involved forging evidence. Huh. See? That's what I'm talking about. No. No! Order! 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 Lana's remarks caused such a stir, the chaos in the courtroom could not be quelled. The conclusion of the trial would have to wait until the following day. I'm so sorry, Mr. Wright. I'm sorry for what my sister said. Yeah, I remember what she said. It wasn't that long ago. I didn't know. I never knew that the SL9 incident was just another name for the Joe Dark killings. Sounds like everyone's heard about these but me. Lana wanted Dark convicted so badly. That's why she used me. That's why she used what happened to me. What do you mean, what happened to you? It's all there in the file. Joe Dark's last victim was Prosecutor Neil Marshall. When he murdered Officer Marshall's brother, he left behind an incriminating piece of evidence. But what did you have to do with those killings, Emma? On the night Prosecutor Neil Marshall was murdered, Joe Dark tried to kill me. What? He tried to kill you? Officer Marshall's brother, Neil, was only trying to save me. So that means you. Yes, I was a witness in the Joe Dark trial. Didn't see that one coming. I mean, I kinda did. I looked through the file. That's probably why Marshall treats you like crap, because his brother sacrificed himself to save you. If it weren't for you, his brother would still be alive, sort of logic. Well, it happened 2 years ago. It was right about this time of year too. There was a terrible thunderstorm that day, unusual for the season. I was alone in my sister's office. We were planning to eat dinner together once she finished her work. Then suddenly, this terrifying man came bursting into the office. Joe Dark. It seemed like he was running from someone. He pulled out a knife and screamed at me. I didn't know what was going on. Just then, Prosecutor Marshall showed up. Jake Marshall's brother. Joe Dark tried to take me hostage, but before he could, Mr. Marshall tackled him. Then, what happened? I'll never forget it. Lightning struck and the lights went out. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning flashed outside the window, lighting up the office for an instant. What I saw then burned a permanent picture into my mind. I can still see it now. Permanent picture? I'll question you about that in a sec. I don't remember the moment when Dark stabbed Mr. Marshall, so you weren't able to testify about that. No, I was only asked about when I was attacked. That must be why why she made up the crime. Made it up? You mean provided bogus evidence? The prosecutor's office wanted that guilty verdict so badly. Lana forged the evidence and Mr. Edgeworth used it. Edgeworth? Yes, but I'm sure he didn't know anything about it. And that's why he got his title of Demon Attorney who forged evidence. He couldn't have known he was given false evidence. Even so, that's when it all started. The rumors about Mr. Edgeworth, I mean. It's all my fault. If I could have just testified properly, none of this would have happened. So it's true, even though he may not have known it. Edgeworth really was involved in falsifying evidence. After that case ended, Lana was never the same. She became cold like she is today. She must have not been able to face up to what she did, especially not to Emma. What did you see in that instant that the crime occurred? With the lightning flash. Dark knocked down Mr. Marshall and raised his knife. Neil Marshall was stabbed right in front of this poor girl? I don't remember what happened after that. Apparently I passed out. When I came to, Lana was cradling me in her arms. Poor Emma, you've been through so much. But what you witnessed... I couldn't bring myself to testify about that instant. I tried, but the words just wouldn't come out. I drew a picture, but it wasn't any good. 2 years ago. You must have been 14. It's understandable. Once it was all over, I made up my mind. I decided that when I grew up, I'd become a scientific investigator. I want to be able to fight crime with my testimonies. and find the evidence to make an airtight case. That way Lana would never have to forge any. I see. Think I'm finally starting to understand what makes Emma tick. But there's still something that bothers me about that crime. There's something that's puzzling me, Emma. What is it? You said you were in Lana's office at that time, right? That's right. Why then would a serial killer come running in there? Not only that, but he was being chased by a prosecutor. Oh, there's no mystery there. Joe Dark had been taken in for questioning that day. Taken in for questioning? By the police? Of course, this happened at the police department. He tried to run away halfway through the interview and fled into my sister's office. But why did he run all the way over to your sister's office? Because the detective offices and the questioning room are right across from the elevator. Across from the elevator? But Lana was the chief prosecutor, wasn't she? No, silly, didn't I tell you? 2 years ago, Lana was a detective. She was the best in the entire force. What? It's news to me. After the Joe Dark case, she was transferred to the prosecutor's office and made chief prosecutor. Lana used to be a detective. Better have another talk with her. Lana? 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 Mr. Wright, it seems I keep causing you trouble. Falsifying evidence? I didn't think you were the type. Criminals don't mind playing foul. Why should we? But Lana, if you're wrong, an innocent person might be found guilty. Believe me, I understand the risks. Lana. Emma told me about you. Oh? About how you were a detective 2 years ago? And how the SL9 incident was the reason for your transfer to the prosecutor's office? That's right. Could you fill me in on the details? Especially about that unusual change of jobs? I suppose you have a right to know, Mr. Wright. A lot of revelations were uncovered at the trial today, not the least of which was the fact that this case is largely connected to that one 2 years ago. Evidence from that case was stolen as well, though I expected as much. I know how obsessive Officer Marshall can be. That trial, it really wasn't fair, was it? I believed in you, Lana. I believed that no matter what happened, you'd always stick to the truth. It couldn't be helped, Emma. That trial 2 years ago, I sold my soul. Well, all drama aside, fact of the matter is, at 5:15, there was no murder at the police department. Tell me it's not true, Lana, what the witness, Ms. Starr, said about you stabbing Mr. Goodman with a knife? Lana, I don't understand. Why won't you tell us? Emma, this doesn't involve just me. Don't think I've ever seen Lana look so fazed before. It's true, I was a member of the police force 2 years ago. She was amazing. They still talk about all the cases she and Chief Gant cracked together. Chief Gant. He was the deputy chief of police back then, but he still worked crime scenes. Damon Gant. He was everything I aspired to be. They were the best team ever. They solved crimes before the reports could even be filed. Right. But now you're chief prosecutor, what happened? I always planned on becoming a prosecutor. The reason I became a detective was To gain experience investigating crime scenes, so you could use that experience in court, right. Gaunt's help with the SL9 case was crucial to its resolution. After that, he became Chief of Police and arranged my transfer to the prosecutor's office. Maybe I should more about this investigation of 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was second in command of the detectives. Second in command? That means the investigation lead was Damon Gaunt. Yes, Deputy Chief Gaunt and I shared the same office, and the same investigations. Even had the same office. We led a team of the best detectives on the force. Detective Goodman, whose case it was, Jake Marshall, and Detective Starr. It was the first time Marshall worked with his brother. He was quite gung-ho. Without a doubt, Joe Dark was the serial killer. We asked him to come in for questioning. We were desperate for evidence. That was when his final murder took place. When he tried to murder Emma. Prosecutor Marshall was trying to save me from Dark. You see, the first person who happened upon the scene of the crime was me. Now you tell us. Damon Gaunt and Neil Marshall were the ones questioning Dark that day. The investigation was in its final stages and Dark must have suddenly panicked. So he waited until Gaunt and Marshall let their guards down, then fled the room. From there he ran straight to the office shared by Deputy Chief Gaunt and myself. It's where he found me. So you were the first person to run to the scene, Lana? It appears so. I was filing some papers while Gaunt and Marshall were questioning Dark. When I returned to my office, I saw 3 bodies on the floor and smelled blood. 3 bodies? Prosecutor Marshall, the victim, Emma, who had passed out, and the suspect, Joe Dark. During the struggle, it seems Mr. Marshall struck a final blow before he died. Joe Dark had incurred a minor concussion and lay unconscious. What did you do? To be honest, I panicked. I picked up Emma, carried her out of the room, and just held her. Can't blame her. After all her sister must have gone through. After that, I placed Dark under immediate arrest. Let me get this straight. You were all involved in SL9? That's right. Quite a coincidence, I don't buy it. But what are you saying? There's no everyone involved in this trial was also involved in that incident, just by chance. But that case was solved 2 years ago. At least one person went to extremes because they didn't believe it was truly solved. Officer Marshall? Yes, his actions came as a surprise to me as well. Ever since his brother died, he's changed completely. I guess he wasn't convinced with the ruling against Joe Dark. Life doesn't end with the closing of a case. Everyone has to live the rest of their lives with the memories. That case just might not be over yet. Emma was assaulted by Dark at the police department, right? Yes, in the office that Damon Gaunt and I shared. The office that Mr. Gaunt now occupies by himself. The Chief's office. Maybe we should have a look at the Chief's office. The site of the final SL9 murder. Now, before we head on over there, and more importantly, before we do any... So, before we head on over there, and more importantly, before I end this episode, I propose a theory. You see, both Gant and Marshall were conducting the interrogation on Mr. Dark. Then, Dark fled into the chief detective's office, Lana and Gant's office. The lights went out. There was a brief flicker in which Emma could see Dark was about to stab Marshall. And although we haven't got physical evidence for it yet, in the flashback we just saw, Marshall's body was on top of Dark's, stabbed in the back. Now, if you were fighting someone one-on-one, I find it pretty unlikely that you end up stabbing them in the back as you collapse to the floor. That's just kind of odd. More likely, someone else entered the room and stabbed him in the back. More likely, someone who would have had reason to follow both Dark and Marshall. Damon Gant was also with Marshall. When they were doing the interrogation, why wouldn't Gant have followed when Marshall gave chase? The final murder of SL9, I'm theorizing, was not committed by Mr. Dark, but Mr. Gant. But I have no evidence of that yet. We'll see if I find anything in the next episode. Bye.